Hold up, what's happening with Caitlin Clark just took a turn nobody saw coming. The Department of Justice and Federal Trade Commission might actually investigate the WNBA, and this isn't some wild conspiracy theory. A massive petition is circulating online right now, and fans are absolutely furious about how they've been misled about Clark's injuries. Before we dive deep into this explosive situation, make sure you hit that like button and subscribe, because what I'm about to reveal will completely change how you see the WNBA's treatment of their biggest star. You know what's insane? While Caitlin Clark has been sitting out for over a month with this mysterious groin injury that nobody seems to want to talk about, honestly, something much bigger has been brewing behind the scenes. Former White House staffer Sean McClain just dropped a bombshell in the Wall Street Journal calling for a full federal investigation into potential civil rights violations against Clark. Yeah, you heard that right. We're talking about the federal government potentially stepping in because of how the WNBA has been handling their golden goose. And before you think this is just some crazy overreaction, even Stephen A. Smith is backing this up, saying they actually have a legitimate case here. But here's where it gets even crazier. Fans are now claiming the Indiana Fever and WNBA have been deliberately misleading them about Clark's injury status just to keep selling tickets. Think about it for a second. On August 12th, Stephanie White went on ESPN saying Clark was coming back to practice, getting ready to make her big return. Fast forward to now, and we find out she hasn't even been practicing. Something doesn't add up here, and fans are starting to connect the dots. The petition that's going viral right now is calling out the WNBA and Indiana Fever for what they're calling consumer deception practices. It straight up says fans felt excited when they bought tickets believing they'd watch Caitlin Clark shine on the court, but that excitement turned to disappointment as misleading injury updates kept fueling false hopes. The petition claims the WNBA and Fever have repeatedly engaged in what seems to be a strategic ploy to drive ticket sales and merchandise by suggesting Clark's return was always just around the corner. Can you believe that? They're essentially accusing the league of lying to fans' faces just to keep the money rolling in. Now let me tell you something that'll really make your blood boil. Remember when they kept Clark listed as questionable for game after game? Fans were spending their hard-earned money, some even using their rent money or bill money, thinking they'd get to see this once-in-a-lifetime player. And what happened? They waited until the last possible moment to announce she wasn't playing. Just like with the All-Star game, they knew days in advance she wouldn't play, but they waited until 3 days before to tell everyone. That's not just wrong, that's potentially illegal consumer fraud. Sophie Cunningham, Clark's teammate who's been one of her biggest offenders, just suffered a devastating MCL tear that ended her season. But before she went down, she was on her podcast, Show Me Something, revealing some interesting details about Clark's injury situation. She said it's literally a day-by-day thing, and even Clark herself doesn't know when she'll be back. Cunningham said if this wasn't the WNBA, Clark would be playing, but at this level with how deep and competitive the league is now, they're trying to get her back to full game shape. But here's the kicker. This completely contradicts what management has been telling the media and fans. The timing of all this is suspicious as heck. Scott Agnes, who's been covering the Fever for years, suddenly laughed off questions about Clark's return after White made those optimistic comments on ESPN. Some fans are calling him White's minion because of how closely they seem to coordinate their messaging. And let's not forget, the Fever have now lost 3 guards to season-ending injuries. Sydney Colson tore her ACL, Ari McDonald broke her foot, and now Sophie Cunningham with the MCL tear. Is this just terrible luck, or is there something more going on with how the team is handling player health? What really has fans heated is the economic damage this has caused. We're talking about people who invested in tickets, streaming packages, and merchandise based on false information. The petition points out that this pattern of communication between league officials and team medical reports raises concerns about coordinated misrepresentation rather than independent factual reporting. They're saying this was a coordinated message to protect revenue streams at the expense of fan loyalty and trust. That's a serious allegation that could have major legal consequences. Stephen A. Smith put it perfectly when he said, if the Trump administration can settle with Columbia University for $221 million over civil rights violations, you can't rule out what could happen if the WNBA continues allowing this treatment of Caitlin Clark. He warned the WNBA straight up, saying they've been forewarned and need to address this immediately. He's calling for things like last 2-minute reports from referees and real reforms to protect their biggest star. The civil rights angle is actually more serious than people realize. McClain's argument in the Wall Street Journal is that Clark has been subjected to excessive fouling, targeting, and hostile comments that constitute a hostile work environment. Under Title VII of the 1964 Civil Rights Act, this could warrant a federal investigation. He's comparing it to the Equal Employment Opportunity Commission investigation into Dearica Hamby's pregnancy discrimination claims against the WNBA. When you put it in that context, suddenly this doesn't seem so far-fetched. But wait, it gets even wilder. Some teams have been excluding Fever games from their half-season ticket packages. Why? So they can sell tickets to Clark's games at premium prices separately. The Minnesota Lynx and other teams are literally creating separate ticket packages just for when Clark comes to town. They're not even trying to hide how much they're exploiting her popularity while simultaneously allowing her to get abused on the court. Now here's something that'll really make you think. Caitlin Clark was responsible for 26.5% of all WNBA economic activity last season, including revenue from merchandise, ticket sales, and television. That's according to Ryan Brewer, a finance professor at Indiana University who specializes in valuations. Over a quarter of the league's entire economic activity from one player, and this is how they treat her? The hypocrisy is mind-blowing. The injuries themselves are suspicious too. Clark has now dealt with 4 separate muscle injuries this season: a left quad strain, a left groin injury, a right groin injury, and reportedly a mild ankle injury she got while rehabbing. Sophie Cunningham called the groin injury weird on her podcast, saying Clark's not in pain all the time, but when she does hurt it, she's out for another extended period. That's why they're being extra cautious, but fans are wondering if there's more to the story. What's really concerning is the pattern we're seeing. ESPN's broadcast team has been giving updates that don't match what the team is actually saying. Ryan Ruocco said on August 12th that White told them Clark was hoping to return to practice that week and would need multiple days of practice before returning to a game. But then, White herself told reporters days later that Clark hadn't returned to practice and it was status quo. Who's telling the truth here? The financial impact of Clark's absence has been devastating for the league. Ticket prices for Fever games dropped 47% when her injury was announced in May. The game against the Mystics that was moved to a bigger arena in Baltimore to accommodate Clark fans saw massive losses when she couldn't play. The get-in price for Indiana's trip to Chicago fell 71%. These aren't just numbers. These represent real fans who felt deceived. Professional sports are built on trust and transparency, and this apparent consumer deception threatens not only the economic interests of fans, but the integrity of professional sports itself. The petition is urging the Department of Justice and Federal Trade Commission to launch a full investigation into these deceptive practices. Fans deserve honesty when they invest in their sports heroes, and right now they're not getting it. The league has fostered an environment where their biggest star, the player bringing in new fans and revenue, is getting physically targeted while management plays games with injury reports to keep selling tickets. Even if you don't think it rises to the level of civil rights violations, you have to admit something stinks here. The lack of transparency, the contradictory statements, the way they're handling injuries, it all points to an organization that's more concerned with short-term profit than the long-term health of their players and relationship with fans. Here's what's really crazy though. While all this drama is happening, the Fever are barely hanging on to a playoff spot. They're 19-16, just 2.5 games ahead of the 9th place Sparks. Without Clark, Cunningham, Colson, and McDonald, they're relying on Kelsey Mitchell and Elijah Boston to carry an impossible load. Mitchell just dropped 38 points in an overtime comeback win against Connecticut, but how long can she keep that up? The investigation calls aren't just coming from random fans either. These are serious people making serious allegations. When a former White House staffer writes in the Wall Street Journal that Congress and the Labor and Justice Departments would be justified in examining the facts, that's not something you can just brush off. The WNBA needs to take this seriously before it escalates further. What makes this even more frustrating is that Clark herself hasn't indicated she wants government involvement. She's been professional throughout this whole ordeal, but fans are tired of seeing her get mistreated both on and off the court. The physical targeting is bad enough, but now with these allegations of misleading fans about her injury status, it's becoming a full-blown scandal. Think about the families who drove 9 hours to see Clark play, only to find out at the last minute she wasn't even suited up. Think about the kids who had their hearts set on seeing their hero, only to be be disappointed because the team couldn't be honest about her status. This isn't just about money, it's about trust, and once you lose that with fans, it's almost impossible to get back. The pattern is clear as day. Keep Clark listed as questionable to maintain ticket sales. Give vague updates that suggest she might play, then pull the rug out at the last second. Rinse and repeat for over a month while fans keep spending money based on false hope. If that's not consumer deception, I don't know what is. And let's not forget, this is all happening while Sophie Cunningham was literally putting her body on the line to protect Clark from dirty plays. She got ejected from games for standing up for her teammate, and some fans even started a petition to ban her from the league for protecting Clark. Now she's out for the season with a torn MCL and Clark still isn't back. The irony is heartbreaking. The WNBA is at a crossroads right now. They can either address these issues head on, implement real reforms to protect their stars, and be transparent with fans about injuries, or they can continue down this path and face potential federal investigation. Stephen A. Smith warned them, fans are organizing and the pressure is mounting. Something has to give. Listen, whether you think a federal investigation is warranted or not, you have to admit the WNBA has massively screwed up here. They've got the most marketable player in women's basketball history, someone who's bringing unprecedented attention and revenue to the league, and they're fumbling it at every turn. The physical targeting, the lack of protection from refs, the misleading injury reports, it's all adding up to a massive scandal that could seriously damage the league's reputation. The bottom line is this: fans deserve better, Caitlin Clark deserves better, and the WNBA needs to get its act together before this situation spirals completely out of control. The petition is gaining signatures every hour. Major media personalities are calling for investigations, and the federal government might actually get involved. This isn't going away anytime soon. What do you think? Is a federal investigation going too far, or is it exactly what the WNBA needs to finally protect its stars and be honest with fans? Drop your thoughts in the comments below, and if you found this information valuable, make sure to hit that subscribe button and ring the notification bell so you don't miss any updates on this developing story. The WNBA's treatment of Caitlin Clark is about to become the biggest scandal in women's sports, and you'll want to stay informed on every twist and turn. Until next time, keep demanding accountability from the leagues we support. Peace out.